the Maharaj kindly given us time to allow us to ask questions and reveal our doubts and things. So it's an important thing. Like, we feel that, you know, in order for this movement to grow, we need brahmacharis, we need those that are spending at least some period of time in their lives in the renounced order of life, engaging full-time in devotional service. So it's important to strengthen that in different ways. So this is one of the ways that we're trying to help with that.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Is that alright?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, questions?
I was wondering about taking instructions. You were mentioning yesterday about the advanced devotees might give some instructions. We can increase our service that way. So are the instructions of every devotee coming from the spiritual master?
They're bona fide instructions, because we don't have any knowledge without the spiritual masters. Nobody gets knowledge any other way, real knowledge. So yes, if it's realized knowledge and they're authorized, then it should be bona fide knowledge. And if you're not sure, you can check with another authority, another senior devotee. Scripture, we have Sadhu Shastras, Guru.
Well, I guess the whole idea of what attachment and aversion are just two sides of the same coin. Yeah, like a question, what can you kind of elaborate on that? Contemplating the object, the senses one develops attachment for them. And then from some such attachment, from lust, anger. And then, contemplating the objects of the senses while restraining the sensitive organs of action, one simply is only deluding himself. It's called a pretender, right? But so, aversion, right, to something that we would be wanted to be attracted to, right? So attraction and aversion to sense objects. Well, there's felt by embodied beings when one should be tolerant and should not be disturbed. Maybe if you elaborate that, because I think in Brahmacharya there's a little bit of a misunderstanding somewhere along the line, and they become fanatically averse, to the point where
To what?
To injuring other people, pushing a Mataji down the stairs or something. Oh, you women, you agitate my
averse to what?
Adverse. Well, we should be averse to sense gratification, but not fanatically adverse to sense gratification.
Yeah, the sense gratification is our thing. But we have to be averse. And we should push sense gratification down the stairs. Sense desire. Lust. We should throw lust right down the stairs with no mercy at all. We're very merciful though to lust. We like to keep lust all around, and we like to think of lust, we like to hear about lusty things, we like to see lusty visions, so we're very much not averse to lust, but it's not, we can't blame somebody else for our lust. I'm the one that has lust, and lust is the enemy, not a woman. A woman is not a woman may incite lust And a person who already has lust has already got the fire. But for a person who's in Krishna consciousness, woman is not an object of lust. So he doesn't have to try to eliminate all the women. You try to eliminate all the beautiful women, that's my program. I get rid of all the beautiful women, then I won't have any lust. Is it going to work?
That's a false renunciation platform, right? Like false renunciation.
Well, that's not renunciation at all. That's just, yeah, that's going. It doesn't work like that. You can't eliminate all the women. That's not within your. And even if you think like that, then you have to go to Himalaya. You can go to Himalaya, no women there. But you probably won't be able to stay very long, because if that's all you're thinking about is I have to get rid of all the women, your point is correct. You're still thinking about women. You know the famous story of the two brahmacharis, and they were at the side of a river, and there was no boat, and it was raining, and so there was a woman there, and she wanted to get across the river, so one of the brahmacharis put her on his shoulder and carried her across the river, put her down, and walked back to the ashram, and the other brahmachari after. They almost reached the ashram. He said, you know, you carried that woman on your shoulder across the river. You're not supposed to do that. He said, I carried her for about 30 yards across the river. You've carried her for about 5 miles across on your mind. So that's it.
No, I just came to see him.
Oh,
Okay, no problem.
did you see him?
I see him. Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, that doesn't mean we're supposed to go to the river and wait for all the women to come so we can carry them across. That's going too far also, but in some emergency situation, there may be a higher principle. So a devotee becomes adept at being able to acknowledge what is the higher principle and what is the lower principle. Higher principle takes precedent. For example, there were some persons in India who were some kind of sadhus of sorts, and they wanted to see Srila Prabhupada, but he was giving a talk. He was having a darshan or something like that, and there was a householder, man and wife there also. Some women were there or something. So they wouldn't come in. They wouldn't come into the room. And then afterwards they came into the room and they talked, and so they were asking Prabhupada about that, why they wouldn't come in because of the women. Prabhupada said, yes, they wouldn't come in because of the women. But did you see their teeth? They're so dirty, unclean. So in other words, their renunciation was not, he didn't consider it to be valid. There's no injunction that says you can't be in association in a place where there's women. But it shouldn't be alone. The temple is neutral ground. Prabhupada said that. Neutral ground. So in other words, it's not that one has that's not considered to be improper. There's another example. They were talking about Mirabai, and they were telling Prabhupada that the saying goes that Mirabai wanted to see Rupa Goswami, and he wouldn't agree because she was a woman, and she supposedly said, "But I thought we were all women and Krishna's the only male. We're all greedy." And Prabhupada didn't accept that, the statements as being valid. He said, because why would Rupa Goswami have not agreed to see her? It's not in the Vaishnava mind that he wouldn't speak with her, he just wouldn't be alone with her. So Prabhupada didn't accept the thing as a bona fide explanation of what actually happened. Bhaktisiddhanta saw women. You couldn't get much more strict than Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Naishtika Brahmachari. He also made disciples, made women disciples, and Lord Chaitanya made women disciples, but he wouldn't closely associate with them. He also made disciples. In the case of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, one time, one of his O.B.L. Kapoor's wife, he was a young man at that time and his wife was very young. Bhaktisiddhanta was in his 60s. So this was the wife of his, she was also his disciple. And she said, "Guru Maharaj, I would like to speak something to you, talk with you privately." Prabhupada said, "No, you can't speak with me privately, you can speak here in the presence of all my other disciples." So that's the standard. Bhaktisiddhanta never said, "I won't see a woman, all women have to be destroyed." But there's guidelines that regulate it, and those guidelines should be followed.
Can you speak a little bit about the consciousness of a brahmachari in relation to the mood or the mission of the guru? Or their authorities?
Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on what you're
Yeah.
looking for.
So I'm just wondering, what should be our mode of operandi for this relationship with our spiritual authorities and our guru?
Like a servant, and but friendship, and with great respect. That's how the brahmachari is taught, like that. Actually, in the Vedic culture, no one becomes a grihastha first. They become a brahmachari first, except Shudras. Shudras can become, they don't have to become brahmacharis, but the other three. Isn't it the four? Brahmana goes through all four. Brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. A Kshatriya goes through brahmachari, grihastha, and vanaprastha. Vaishya goes through brahmachari and grihastha. And the Shudra just goes through grihastha. So, three higher divisions go through the brahmachari training, and they learn that devotion to the guru. That's why the Shudras, in Vedic culture, they don't get initiated, because they haven't taken that brahmachari training. Of course, it's not based on birth. Formerly, it might have been based on birth to some extent, because the system was so perfectly followed. You could practically, it was almost invariably that the son of a Shudra would have the qualities of a Shudra, and the son of a that isn't always the case. And so that's not actually the highest principle. So it's not based on birth, it's based on qualities. Someone that may be acting like a Shudra, if he becomes enlightened by the association with a saintly person, then he can be raised Kangsa Vidanataha, Tata Diksha Tata Deva. Tata Diksha Vidanina Dvijatvam Jayatenina, by the alchemical process of initiation, just like bell metal can be turned into gold by an alchemical process, so by initiation, ordinary person can be turned into a Brahmana. So, in Vedic culture, that's the, you could say, the Ado Gurvashram. The very beginning is to understand the relationship with the spiritual master. So one learns that in Brahmacharya training. And then that carries through. The Brahmachari, before he retires from Brahmachari life, he goes to the Guru and says, I would like to take leave if you give your permission to enter Grihastha ashram. And with the permission, he goes and becomes Grihastha, but he's already been trained. So he's as devoted to the Guru as anyone else, because he got the training. That's why in our temples, because we didn't get Brahmacharya training in our youth, which usually begins at Brahmacharya Gurukule Vasandanto Guru at the age of 5. We didn't get that training, so it's important to get some training in the Brahmacharya ashram, maybe even if it's more compact than the full, but to get that training. So if one decides to enter Grihastha ashram, he has some idea of that important basis of life. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yes.
So my question is in a similar vein to Dr. Miguel's and KB's question, and I'll just use the specific instance that arose in my mind. So a few days ago or earlier last week, when you asked me about the flowers, and I said that wasn't exactly my service, but I would let it be known to Maruta, whose service it was, should I have taken your direction as a personal assignment? And if it conflicts with a structure that we have an understanding of beforehand, does the direction of the spiritual master supersede any hierarchical structure?
Generally, yes, because just like if the head of a company tells you to take something take it downstairs and deliver it, you say, yeah, but I had another duty I was supposed to do. He knows that. Well, you might tell him, and he might say, well, that's important. That's more important, do it. Or he might say, no, this is more important, do it. In the case where we discussed, it wasn't a direct instruction, it was just an inquiry. And a suggestion that would be nice, and I trusted that you would use your judgment how to best try to accomplish it. And I'm sure you did. Although maybe you could have tried more also. And that's also possible. As we may not always execute a service to the best possible capacity we could have, and we learn from that. So there's no harm. After all, we're getting trained. We're neophytes. Neophytes are expected to not know everything. That's why they're getting training. So, as long as we have the mood of wanting to be trained and wanting to try to do my best to perform devotional service under the proper direction, that's the real thing. And the details spiritual master sees that the enthusiastic inclination of the enthusiasm of the disciple, that's what he's really impressed with, not so much the results. If a devotee goes out and tries to distribute books and he doesn't come back with a very big score, that doesn't mean that the spiritual master or the senior devotee will not be encouraged. He sees he tried hard, he went out sincerely, result or no result, and he's continuing making advancement in devotional service. That's what he's interested in seeing. Is that right? Yes.
We were talking about this mood, and I was wondering about like camaraderie. You know, how should we interact with our other, our friends that are getting trained up with us, and how do we defeat envy?
It'll become defeated by practicing devotional service. If you continue with devotional service, you'll defeat envy, lust, greed, everything. All the enemies of bhakti will be defeated. Because as you become advanced in devotional service, you'll appreciate rather than become envious. Envious means I don't want him to progress. I don't want him to do a good job. So that's like if the other party of book distributors, they might beat us, my party, so I slice their tires at the night before, so they lose 3 or 4 hours and they can't get their tires, so we win. That's not a very good program. But to want to, Prabhupada summarize it like this: transcendental competition is, oh, that devotee is doing so nicely. Let me also try to do nicely. Maybe I can even do something more than that devotee. That's favorable. That's not unfavorable. Provided he doesn't become attached to the results, and if he doesn't do more than the other, then he becomes morose and angry and then belittles the other devotee. Well, he did more, but he had a better spot than I did. And anyway, he had a better vehicle, and there's so many things like that. That type of attachment to the results is not helpful. And criticizing a devotee is not helpful. As long as it's encouraging, then it's transcendental competition. If it becomes non-transcendental competition, then we're not interested in that. We don't want the same competition we had in the material world, which is not very congenial. Nobody makes any spiritual advancement with that. Mundane competition, defeating the others. I'm better. But appreciating the others, that's nice. And trying to do also nicely to please Krishna, that's also nice. And that encourages the other devotees too. So, does that answer your question about envy?
Yeah.
Envy is a negative thing. I want to be higher. So it means I want to be more respected than others. But instead of actually becoming higher, let me actually become more advanced. If the other devotee is more advanced and does wonderful service more than myself, There must be a reason for that. He must be more advanced. He's actually doing. So I should become inspired by that. Not. Sometimes it may seem like we become depressed to see the glory of another devotee. He's so glorious that it just makes me feel terrible. Whenever I see him or I think about him, I become disgusted. But that's a little bit helpful to some extent, as long as we don't take it too far. But when I think about all the service he's doing and how I can't do anything, even close, it makes me sick to my stomach. So that's all right. But not that I should criticize him. Nothing wrong with him. It's me. I should criticize my laziness, my attachment to sense gratification, my unwillingness, my insincerity. And again, that shouldn't be overdone either, because you can become so attached to criticizing yourself that you don't do any service except criticize yourself. Just as someone says, could you come and do this? No, I'm busy criticizing myself. Guru wants you to do it. Spiritual notes, temple president wants you to do this. No, I told you I'm criticizing myself right now. It's very important. Little criticism is all right, criticism. But don't go too far where it interferes with your service. Like, for example, Jagadananda Pandit, he was a servant of Lord Chaitanya, but he had a certain way of doing the service where he wanted Lord Chaitanya to be comfortable and to be given nice things. He didn't want him to undergo too much austerity. That was his idea. So he did many things. One time he carried a pot of sandalwood oil, which was very valuable to Lord Chaitanya, and gave it to him as a gift. Told his servant to rub it on his head a little bit every day. It helped to keep his head cool. But Lord Chaitanya wouldn't accept it because it smelled, sandalwood's a very beautiful smell, very attractive. And he said, people generally who wear sandalwood are trying to attract the opposite sex. He said, so sannyasi shouldn't do it. So he wouldn't accept the gift. He said, but take the gift of sandalwood oil and give it to the temple of Jagannath. They'll burn it in the lamps for Lord Jagannath, and your service will be great. So Jagannath threw the pot down, broke the pot, went to his room, locked the door, fasted. But then when Lord Chaitanya, after a few days, he said, go tell Jagannath I want him to cook for me. So he immediately came, took a bath, and came and cooked for Lord Chaitanya. So in other words, he may have been a little disappointed with himself or whatever, but he didn't let it get in the way of his service. As soon as he was given the opportunity to serve again, he did. So, it's nice to appreciate others, how nicely other devotees are serving. That's the Vaikuntha atmosphere, rather than to look for the faults. The fly looks for sores. If you have any sores on your body, open cuts or something, they like to go there, they congregate. But the bees only look for the honey and the flowers. The nectar, they don't look for nasty sores like the fly. So we don't want to be like a fly. We want to be like the bee. See the good qualities in others. And if we practice that, if we make a regular practice of not looking for the faults, trying to overlook the faults, and trying to see the qualities. That's good practice. That'll help us. Because when talk is going around, village talk, there may be somebody being criticized. And if we have a taste for that, like the fly, we're very eager to hear that. We don't want to miss a word. But if we're practiced to only want to hear the positive thing and not the faults, then we won't be interested in that. Like Jayananda. Jayananda would never hear the faults of another devotee. He always, if there was some criticism going on with devotees, he would just quietly go on with his service somewhere else. You wouldn't even notice it. Where did Jayananda go? We were so absorbed in everything. Jayananda had other services to do. He didn't have time to hear the faults of the devotee. And Raghunath Bhatta, I think it was, one of the Raghunaths, he didn't want to hear any faults, even if there were faults. He didn't want to hear them because he didn't think like that. So these are good qualities to develop, to cultivate. That'll help us overcome envy.
But how do we see things in like a realistic way if people have certain tendencies that are hindering the culture or atmosphere in the temple or ashrams?
Yeah, if it's our duty and we're given some responsibility for some particular aspect and that's part of our service, then it's taken not as fault finding but as training, as education. There's a difference between education, training, and fault finding. A teacher, when the student comes up and the teacher says, okay, draw A, and it draws it, it doesn't look like A. The teacher doesn't say, that's not right, that's wrong, you fool, you rascal. Why didn't you learn? But he says, okay, like this, shows him again and teaches. The teacher is willing to teach again and again, so there's patience. But it's teaching. Teaching is every parent sends their children to get taught, and they know that the child's going to be instructed. They know the child's going to make so many mistakes, but they have trust that the teacher will do it in a nice way, in a positive way, so that the child doesn't become discouraged or demoralized, but likes it and becomes more full of confidence. So there's a big difference between instructing and teaching, training, and fault finding. Fault finding, they're not really interested in necessarily correcting it. They're just more interested in the art, the act of fault finding. That's what they enjoy, the fault finding. Nothing really good. They don't want anything good to come out of it. The only good is that they enjoy fault finding because it makes them feel like they're better than the other person. What's so good about that? That's not good either. But they think it's good because they're in the bodily conception of life.
So just continue with this thought. If we find someone engaging in that kind of activity and behavior directed towards us, and for myself, like, my inclination is to react similarly, which I know is bad for my sadhana and my service, and I'm very wary of committing any kind of aparad. But if there is an instance of another devotee who is acting in an unbecoming way, especially if there are not other devotees around, how should we, as the recipient of that word or deed or whatever, how should we handle that?
Well, we should try to tolerate. Chanada Pisanichena Tadora Pisashana Amanana Manadena Kirtana Sanadi. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in the humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than the strongest tree, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respects to others. Such a humble state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Don't expect that everybody's going to treat you exactly the way you want them to treat you. Don't expect everyone's going to treat you with respect. Sometimes they'll treat you with disrespect. That's the way this world is. You can't stop that. You're going to put a sign up wherever you go, don't speak to me with disrespect. And when you're driving your car with someone, you're keeping your distance between you and the car in front, and some guy behind you is honking his horn. Why are you going so slow? And you can try to tell him, with a speaker or something, I'm going the speed limit and I'm keeping my distance between the car. But he doesn't care, he's going to criticize you anyway. So if you become angry back at him, and he drives by and he makes gestures at you, profane gestures, and rolls down his window to speak yell out some profanities also, just to make sure you got the point. So then if you say, oh yeah, and you speed up and you go and you roll down the window, and you say, well, you're also a nut. And I've seen that. It doesn't make any sense. Better just be humble, but it's not easy to be humble because we, out of passion and ignorance, we want to be respected. We want others to respect us. And we want to disrespect everybody else, except those who respect us, and we like them. Anyone who doesn't respect me, I have no respect for him whatsoever. So, we have to cultivate that. Now, we may not always succeed in every circumstance, but we should try to succeed. We should try to cultivate that mood. At least understand it philosophically that that's the way I should be. And sometimes I may not perform well under certain circumstances, but I'm going to keep trying. Sometimes you'll be blamed for something that you didn't do. But the way I think of it, I know sometimes that happens, I'm blamed for something that I didn't do. Then I think about all the times I did nonsense things and I didn't get blamed for it. So I go, it balances out a little bit. Right? Sometimes you do things like, nobody found out, I'm really happy. No one found out about that. I should have been blamed. It was my fault, but it wasn't. So it works out. Sometimes you'll be blamed for something you didn't do. Sometimes you'll be praised for something. Or not praised, or whatever. You get the idea. So just take it. Take it. Equal in fame or infamy, Bhagavad Gita. This is the initial training. Krishna says, one who's very dear to him is one who's equal in happiness and distress, fame or infamy. So we practice. We put these things, put Bhagavad Gita into practice every day. So when someone you're going out to try to assure someone says, I remember one time we were on Harinam here in the plaza, and some very rich people, they were drinking here. There was a bar upstairs, but they were kind of, because they were so rich, they were drinking out on the street too, as part of to show off that they were above everybody else. And so they took the opportunity. One of them said, to me, he said, we have the money, me and my friends here, to put you where you belong. He meant to put us in an insane asylum. He said, we have the money to do that. So he meant it as a really strong criticism that we belonged in an insane asylum. We're crazy. But by his activities, see that he wasn't in a transcendental position. He didn't have transcendental knowledge. He didn't understand what we were doing. He was basing it on some misunderstanding. And he was drinking and so many things. So I didn't take it very seriously. It didn't upset me. I didn't become angry. So when you have some transcendental knowledge, then you can be spared getting angry unnecessarily for the body. There was, when we were young, I don't know if you have this generation or whatever generation you are, but my generation, parents taught the children whenever they were being bullied or criticized to say, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names could never hurt me." Child would say that. And that was it. And they would just chant that mantra, and they would just walk through, because that would protect them. Their parents had given them an instruction that when they remembered that, then they weren't upset, because it superseded the criticism or the bullying that was going on. So sometimes we can use that also. That someone may criticize me, but I'm not getting hurt. It doesn't hurt me. They're criticizing the body, and I'm not the body. It's like if someone says, your shirt, it's just disgusting. Now, if I'm attached to my body, and I'm attached to the shirt that goes on my body, then I'll take that as an insult to me. But if it's somebody else's shirt, I said, you can say anything you want about that shirt, it's not mine. But if he says something about my shirt, because of my attachment to my body, then I become upset. So it all depends on the attachment. If I'm not attached to being the body, then it doesn't matter what people think. Shukadev Goswami was walking in the forest, and he was being disrespected by many low-class people. They were abusing him, even dogs and things were barking at him, and because he was a self-realized soul, and they couldn't understand that. They just thought that he was doing something that shouldn't be done. Namely, he didn't have clothes on. He was such an advanced soul, he didn't even worry about those things. But they didn't understand that he was an advanced soul until when he came to the saintly persons. And the saintly persons bowed down and offered respects to him. But as far as Shukadev was concerned, it didn't bother him. He wasn't attached to whether the body was advanced or not, or dog barks at us. Sometimes we become angry if a dog barks at us. What do you expect the dog to do? I mean, that's what dogs do. So if somebody criticizes us, even a devotee, but you can also take it not necessarily that it's their fault, but you can try to see that maybe there's some instruction here, some benefit for me to learn. Just pointing out some faults I have. And he's trying to be my friend. A friend points out faults, not for the sake of harming the other friend, but for helping. So, I guess it depends on the circumstance. You could give an example, like I don't mean with names and everything, I mean just like, well, I don't want it to get like a specific, but just kind of a general example. Anyway, you get the point.
So sometimes when I'm reading Prabhupada's books, occasionally I get to things that is just like things I can't really realize or prove, it's hard for me to accept, such as like the solar system, the universal creation, going to the moon, these type of things. So I tend to just like put it on the shelf, for now and keep reading. But, I'm worried like over time, like the shelf might kind of pile up and break. Like how do I
you're okay.
deal with these things?
No, that's good. That's the way to do it. You can think that I haven't been able to understand that one fully.
Because when I actually try to think about them, it like frustrates me direly because I want to understand.
No, that's okay. You put it aside. You've done the right thing with it. You're not saying it's not true. If you say it's not true, and then you have your problem is that you don't have complete faith in the Vedic scriptures. And at the same time, it's almost that you've closed the door completely. But you've said that you've imagined yourself that you already, at this particular point, you have all the knowledge that you're going to get on that subject. You have all the realization that you're going to get, and therefore you've made your conclusion, and that's it forever. That's detrimental. Because then and then you say it's wrong, and then of course your spiritual life will be damaged by that. But if you say, this one's a little difficult for me to understand right now, for me to fully grasp, so I'm putting it, and I'm going to keep it on the shelf there, and I'll review it. It'll come back, because if you keep reading Prabhupada's books, it'll come out again. And if you go to classes, you'll hear it again. That's why we keep going to classes. We keep reading. We don't just read something once. Keep going, and you continue with your devotional service. And someday, you will. It'll make sense when you're ready, because you have dealt with it in the right way. You want to understand it. You want to have realization of it, but you're not there yet. But rather than reject or make an offense to the scripture, to the Srimad Bhagavatam or to the Vaishnavas, you just take it that, I'm going to have to be more advanced, so I'm going to take some time for me, my faith to. Or you may discuss it with other senior devotees that you have confidence in, and they may be able to explain it in a way that helps you. Or if not, then you say, well, I guess I'll try it again, and I still didn't get it, so I'll just put it on the side for some time. But be careful not to kind of have a self-righteous idea that I know better than the scriptures. I know better than Danavir Goswami, and I know better than, you know what I mean? But keeping it on the side, there's many things, I have experience of that. There's many things I didn't understand, and that I still don't understand, that I may have put on the shelf. And it's really nice when you do get an understanding of those things, and it helps you. Like, for example, Prabhupada even did that. He told us a story about one time that happened to him. The story goes like this. Let's see if I can get it right. He was visiting his Guru Maharaj in their ashram. I think it was in Mayapur. And in the courtyard there was a big snake. Crawled out, and everyone said, python, python, snake, snake. And they didn't know what to do. And Bhaktisiddhanta was up on the balcony overlooking there, and he said, take a stick and kill it. So the boys took sticks and they killed the snake. And Prabhupada, at that time Abhay, he said, it remained a doubt in my mind. Oh, Sadhu has killed a snake. I thought sadhus were not supposed to kill something. I didn't think sadhu. He said, but I put it aside. Same idea exactly. I put it aside. And then later on I was reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There was that verse, Chikra, that Prahlad Maharaj said to Lord Vishnudev, that even a sadhu becomes modeta, he becomes pleased when a snake or a wasp is killed, or a snake is killed. And he said even sadhus, because that was an argument that Prahlad was using to pacify Lord Vishnudev. You can reduce your anger now, and no one will criticize you, because everyone will be pleased in the whole universe because he was such a snake. Tara. Worse than a snake. An uncharmable snake. So no one will. And so Prabhupada said, when I saw that verse, I was very happy.
Question I have is, like, it would be better to, so to speak, for somebody to say, like, bite their lip, you know, kind of like push through and remain brahmachari, or if they had, like, more of a tendency to go grihastha, like, would that be beneficial? Like, how would one know what to do?
I'm discussing with the spiritual master. The spiritual master will give expert guidance because he's objective. And generally though, Prabhupada's general advice was that there's no harm if someone feels he would prefer to be in the grihastha ashram, that he can do that. There's no they don't have to artificially pose themselves to be brahmacharis if they're not inclined to it. Although it is recommended, if possible, try to remain in brahmachari. He said, but there should be no, how do you call it, pressure. No one should be pressured to become a grihastha. If one is a brahmachari, because this, Srila Prabhupada Swami told me this story. He was a brahmachari. Actually, he was a brahmachari, and they wanted him to marry. Somebody wanted him to marry this woman, this girl. And he didn't want to, but they were putting a little pressure on him. And so he went to Prabhupada, either by letter, and so there's a famous letter from Prabhupada said, there should be no canvassing that someone should become a grihastha. If he can remain a brahmachari, let him do it, that's great. All glories. There should be no canvassing. But if he wants to become grihastha, that's okay too. Because I also got a letter from Prabhupada who said, whether grihastha or brahmachari, he said, my Guru Maharaj was lifelong brahmachari and I was grihastha, but we're doing the same work. And he said, if a grihastha is fully engaged in devotional service, he's already a sannyasi, better than a sannyasi. So there's no problem. But we don't want to become grihamaiti. There's a difference between grihamaiti and grihastha. Grihamaiti is one who lives at home, but he's an envious householder. He's a materialistic householder. Whereas a grihastha, he has an ashram, and his ashram is as good as the sannyas ashram or the brahmachari ashram. So a grihastha fully engaged in devotional service is better than a so-called sannyasi or so-called brahmachari who's drinking water underwater on a fast day. You know that expression? He's cheating. So a sannyasi who's got women, or a brahmachari who's on the Facebook, who's got so many girlfriends, and so he's better off he becomes a grihastha and does it properly than to associate improperly in an ashram that doesn't allow it. So we have to, it takes some soul searching, and the main thing is, how can I best serve the mission? How can I best serve Krishna? my spiritual master. And understanding what's expected in different ashrams. One should understand that the Brahmacharya ashram is strict, but there's a reason why it's so strict, because they have to, because of the particular respect that's offered to those who wear saffron. Prabhupada gave saffron in the beginning to anyone who wasn't married and who was strictly following. So, some places in India they only give saffron after someone is initiated or twice, or even determined to remain brahmachari for life, maybe. That was different, but that was Prabhupada's way. There's four stages of brahmachari. So, only one is to take a lifelong vow. It's Naishtika. The other three are for a limited time. So that one is allowed to take brahmachari for some time and then become a grihastha, if he so desires. And that's quite alright. So that's what we're doing. Our saffron that we give to new devotees doesn't mean that they're taking vows to remain brahmachari for their whole life. But while they're in this particular ashram, while they're practicing this, they should follow the brahmachari strictly, and if they're not able to, then there's grihastha ashram. They can enter that ashram.
Could you give us our specific instructions on how we how we can understand this ashram here in RBC?
Ashram?
This brahmacharya ashram?
Same way. It is while you're in the brahmacharya ashram, you follow it strictly, as strictly as you possibly can, and properly, so that you get the full benefit from it. Because if you follow the ashram nicely, then it becomes a place for developing spiritual knowledge. Ashram means place where spiritual knowledge is taught or learned. So if you follow brahmacharya, the example is Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada gives this example, it's a very graphic example. He says, when Shivananda Sena would come and visit Lord Chaitanya in Puri, Lord Chaitanya would ask about Shivananda Sena's, and he would sometimes even bring his wife, and Lord Chaitanya would receive them. And he would ask about the children and so many things. He showed no contempt for the grihastha ashram, because that was their ashram. But when Chota Haridas, as a sannyasi, looked lustfully at a woman, he was very upset. So there's different expectations, different standards for different ashrams. One who takes sannyas has a very high standard of expectation, but the result is, if he follows, then he becomes the guru of all the varnas and ashramas. Because to realize the importance of non-association with women, or shall we say, the determination to not act in such a way that is detrimental for one's devotional service and thus harmful to society, that is a great realization. And to be engaged in devotional service at the expense of sense gratification, that is a great realization. So, but on the other hand, if a sannyasi doesn't, as mentioned today, or sometimes that a black spot of ink on a white handkerchief, can't hide it. So sannyasi, if there's any faults, when the public finds out, they spread it around like wildfire. So sannyasi has the shall we say, the responsibility to really behave well and not make mistakes. Brahmacharya is not as strict because he's a beginner. He may be a beginner. He's in that stage and he can become a grahasta. He's supposed to be strict, but it's not as incumbent upon him as a sannyasi. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I had a specific example. You were mentioning how we can send, our friends this video. So, using the media, that I had in my previous, experience, I sent, to some people, and some of those happened to be people with the female body. So did I transgress the rules of Brahmacharya by interacting with them in that way?
No, I don't think so. It depends on what you're thinking. If you're thinking something sense gratification, but I'm sure you were thinking how to help them in their Krishna consciousness and their friends. That's okay. But if it continues, and if you're starting to kindle a fire, that may also be okay up to a point. Like for example, there was one devotee, I won't mention his name, but he was a brahmachari, but he was on Sankirtan and he preached to a particular girl and she became a devotee and he married her. So Prabhupada praised him because he was attached. He found someone he liked. He preached to her, made her a devotee, and then he married her. And then he became a nice couple and had nice children, and Prabhupada was pleased with their service. So, if it works out like that, then it can be favorable. But not that we should think of all the people that we meet on Sankirtan as possible partners. That could get troublesome. So many partners, potential partners. Then if it's like that, if we're thinking, here's a potential partner, then maybe it means it's time to change color. Because if you're thinking, which one's going to be my potential partner, then it means you're thinking about the wrong thing. And that's why some of our book distributors, they avoid getting too close even on Sankirtan, because they know that how subtle this attachment is. So, but it's nice that you thought about it afterwards and you thought, well, maybe that wasn't correct, so you could discuss with your senior godbrothers or senior devotees in your association and get their views, how they thought. They might say, oh, really, you did that? That might be a little awkward. That might have been better to leave that one. But you'll get different opinions also. It's not that there's only one opinion. Someone will say, yeah, no problem. Someone will say, problem. So it doesn't mean there's no problem or problem. Well, it depends on the circumstances. There's different angles of vision, and it's not that one has to be right and one has to be wrong. There may be different circumstances, and one person would advise this. It's not always exactly the same.
I understand that a son from the age of 5 till his teenage years, he should be strictly disciplined by his father and chastised. but for a disciple of a spiritual master, isn't it true that he should always be ready to be chastised for his whole life?
He should be, but even Prabhupada recognized that that wouldn't necessarily be the case. And there's examples of that. He was speaking to some of his senior devotees, senior disciples, and he said, I'm telling you this, and I know that you're mature disciples, so I prefer not to give you instructions, orders. I prefer to just suggest. So he took that Chanakya Pandit saying and he applied it, that when they get a little older, like you said, 16, when it says he reached 16, then the father just throws away the stick, doesn't beat him with the stick anymore. I don't mean literally beat him with the stick, but he doesn't give him orders. Now he's his friend. And so Prabhupada used that tactic more in this particular circumstance. So I don't like to give you orders because you're senior. And he was treating them as if they were grown sons. He's the father. He's saying, so now you're grown and mature. I don't like to give you orders. But just my suggestion is, he was very humble like that. And
Yeah, Prabhupada's fun. All of us were young though.
yeah, right. And when someone becomes grihastha, that may also be taken as a little sign of his maturity, in a sense. When he takes the grihastha ashram, then the spiritual master may, as you say, give him a little more independence, a little more. He's not expected to carry out every detail, but Bhaktisiddhanta, of course, sometimes was very strict with his grihasthas also. Prabhupada, our Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, said the householder should give 50%. Bhaktisiddhanta sometimes said 100%. So when I hear that, I thank the Lord that we got Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta, because we might not have been able to, or at least some of us might not have been able to pass the test that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was very strict. No money even for medicine, and he didn't like that. So yes, that is the case, and Prabhupada was right in doing that, and the devotees felt very endeared. I mean, they might have felt a little bit guilty also, but I'm so sorry that we're so attached that Prabhupada had to say that. It would have been better if we were so advanced that he could have just ordered us, and he didn't have to flatter us. But sometimes Prabhupada flattered his disciples even to get them to do the best thing. So yes, it would be best if one is always like Haridas Thakur. He was older than Lord Chaitanya, not only disciple, but he was on the level of the spiritual master. He was older. But whenever he saw Lord Chaitanya, he immediately paid dandavats. He wouldn't even come close. He felt himself so fallen. Lord Chaitanya, one time Jagannatha Pandit gave instructions to, I think it was Sanatana Goswami. And when Lord Chaitanya found out, he was upset with Jagannatha. He said, he's a new boy, he's giving you instructions. You're on a level of, you can instruct him, you're so advanced. So, this etiquette is also part of devotional service. So one who knows how to use that etiquette show respects to seniors and to offer respects to others in the proper way.
How can one defeat false prestige? I feel like I notice a pattern of maybe every 2 weeks where I get comfortable and then enjoying mood. Okay, maybe every hour, I don't know, but I get in an enjoying mood, thinking, oh, everything's okay, and then all of a sudden, it's like everything changes real quickly.
Yeah, the enjoying spirit. Well, that enjoying spirit, don't worry, you don't have to worry about it. You'll be tested, because, as you said, when the test is when the things turn out to be not enjoyable to your senses, what do? If you go on serving, then it means you pass the test. Because when you're enjoying, you serve, and when you're not enjoying, if you go on serving, then that's okay. But if when you're enjoying, you serve, and when you're not enjoying, then you don't serve. When it's sunny outside, then you like to do Sankirtan. And when it's not sunny, forget it. Or when it's cold, I don't do service. When it's warm, I do service. Or if there's opulent prasadam, then I take prasadam. And if it's not opulent, I go out and buy something. See, then we're not passing the test. But as long as you serve in both circumstances, then you're all right. Because the happiness and the distress, they'll come and go. Krishna says you should treat them like summer and winter seasons. They arise from sense perception. Tolerate them without being disturbed. So just tolerate the ups and downs. The euphoria. Of course, we shouldn't be euphoric, but if we are sometimes, that's okay. But be ready, because there'll be days when you're not euphoric. You're just the opposite. You're depressed. But you still have to serve when you're depressed. So if you have that determination, I'm going to serve whether I'm euphoric or I'm depressed. Whether I think I'm the best or I think I'm the worst. Thinking you're the worst doesn't mean you don't have to do service. We discussed that earlier. You can't say, go away, I'm too much thinking on how fallen I am right now. I don't know, I can't do any service. That's not acceptable.
So, just again, to make it about myself, because I'm...
It says about yourself?
Yes, but it's universal.
No, that's the way it should be.
Okay. So we spoke...
If you ask something that's not related to anyone you know and it has no relevance, what's the use? We're trying to make this a learning experience. But as you say, you're not unique. There are others like you.
So we had another opportunity to speak like this in December, and I asked you specifically about kind of grihastha lifestyle stuff. And I still remember very vividly the advice that you gave me.
Oh.
And I adopted it, and everything was good. It's still good. It's still very good. So the situation changed where now we have a Mataji in the ashram. And like my situation it's not like a gross lustful thing, but it's like a subtle, like I find myself imagining just association. Right, just association. Yeah. So I mean, right, so I guess my question is, given that everyone has a right to be here, and I wouldn't want to shun anybody, but it's changed the dynamic of the ashram. How can I minimize any of this, if at all possible?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. You know? Because our point is that you can't exclude the fair gender from living or from interacting or even from being in the temple, as these Prabhupada said. So, but we have to take out the poison fangs. It's not the snake doesn't have to be killed. Just take out the poison fangs. So the lust has to be taken out of myself. And that I'm working on. So, as you pointed out nicely, that these temples are not just for men. Although there's no harm if a particular center is only for, there's no harm in that. Because generally the women didn't stay in ashrams. In the Vedic culture, they would stay at their homes. They would be under the protection of their fathers until they got married. And when they got married, they went with their husband, and they were under the protection of their husband. And then later on, when the husband was taking sannyas, and they would stay under the care of their eldest son. So that's generally, there was no such thing as brahmacharini ashrams. But Prabhupada allowed it because he took compassion upon these women who had no shelter. Parents weren't guiding them properly, husbands weren't guiding them properly, and sons weren't guiding them properly, so they were just lost. So he gave them the opportunity to stay in the ashram, but he pointed out, like in Los Angeles, he set that up as his standard, that men and women live there, but there's no interaction, there's no lustful interaction. And I have experience, fortunately Dick has experience also, in being in the Los Angeles temple. There were women, and they were our age, but because of the standards that Prabhupada set of service and disassociation, there was no improper mixing, and therefore it wasn't detrimental. Everyone could prosecute their devotional service without being hindered. Now when it crosses the boundary, I remember there were some girls that used to come up to you and pay obeisances whenever they saw you. So the brahmachari didn't know, should I? I don't want to be puffed up and just walk away, so we bowed down, and there would be the two of us bowing down to each other. It was happened many times. So when it got to that point, then you had to bring it up to an authority and say, what about this? So that was an improper use of that particular thing. And I'm sure it works the other way too. The men would take advantage of trying to get their association. But as long as everybody minds their own business, their own business means devotional service, and they don't interact in a dallying way. The brahmachari, there's 7 or 8 different aspects. I'll mention them. This is given by Srila Swami, the commentator on Bhagavad. He says, Smaranam kirtanam keli prekshanam guya pasanam sankalpa devasyayascha kriya nivartar evacha. Describes the principles of a brahmachari. So the first one is smaranam. He doesn't think about women. Smaranam, he doesn't remember them. Smaranam kirtanam, he doesn't talk about the activities of women and men. Kirtanam keli. Keli means dallying. You know what dallying means? It means like flirting. Like kind of talking lightly, light talk. Smaranam kirtanam keli prekshanam. Lustful glances. A brahmachari is not supposed to have lustful glances for the women. Prekshanam guya pasanam. Guya pasana means privately whispering or talking in private, sending love letters or something like that. Bhasanam. Guya pasana, private talks or email. What do you call it? Text messages. If somebody's got 200 text messages, and he's supposed to be a brahmachari, and he's got 200 text messages per day with a woman, and that's Guya Bhasanam. He's not a brahmachari. He's in the wrong ashram. He needs to change. Guya Bhasanam. Sankalpa means making a vow. One should not make a vow to associate with women or to have sex life. we have also a song called endeavoring for sex life, making, like the materialists do, they make endeavors. They get a certain car, and they get certain clothes, and a certain hairstyle, and a certain way of talking, and certain, aftershave lotion. I mean, they have a whole system. They're endeavoring. They're setting their net up to catch the fish. That's also not allowed. Kriya means actual sex life. So they're all parts of sex. It's not just the gross act, it's also the subtle acts that lead up to it. So a real brahmachari, he avoids all those things. So we should see like Prabhupada. Prabhupada was a strict sannyasi, but he had mercy on the souls that were in female bodies. And if he hadn't have done that, our movement wouldn't have grown the way it's grown. So we should be thankful, because we may think that I would have been much happier if there were no women in the movement. It would have been easier for me, but it probably wouldn't have been easier, because we probably weren't ready for that. we might not have been, it wouldn't have been so easy for us to stay. And plus, even if I were able to stay, many others, women, wouldn't be able to stay, and men who were married to those women, they wouldn't be able to stay and do service. And it was a lot due to them that I'm able to be here now. So without their help, the movement wouldn't have grown to be as big and as all-encompassing as it is. And you wouldn't have the opportunity. It's like Mukunda. Mukunda was the first householder in the movement. He and his girlfriend were living together in New York, and they became attracted to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada gave them initiation, initiated them. Then they went to San Francisco on their way to India, and Prabhupada said, try to open a temple there. So they opened a temple. And then by their preaching, they made so many devotees, and some of them were grihastas, some of them were brahmacharis, some of them were brahmacharis. Had they not, or those that they preached to, not been allowed to, be part of the temple, and what about the other temples? So all the temples developed from there. So if, for example, if those three couples hadn't gone to England, where would England be? Where would our movement be? The Beatles wouldn't have taken to Krishna Consciousness, wouldn't have gotten Bhaktivedanta Swami, wouldn't have opened up centers all over Europe. So Prabhupada's idea was they have the tendency to serve Krishna. He said, boys are good and girls are good, but boys and girls together, bad. So that's the idea. Not to have improper mixing. It's not that women are bad or boys are bad. They're both good, but they keep their distance. Social distance. Isn't that what it's called? Social distance. Yeah, that should be instituted. Between boys and girls, there should be a certain number of feet. 6 feet you have to keep distance. Now don't quote me on that. I'm joking. But there should be social distancing. It's a fact. For the benefit of both, so that the women don't get exploited and the men don't lose their opportunity to become Krishna conscious. And the Prabhupada did establish that. But he showed it could be established even in an environment of the temple. They don't live close together and they don't associate together except in devotional service. And that is carefully done, monitored by the senior devotees to make sure that it's not become frivolous or on a mundane level. But I definitely developed a healthy respect for the Matajis, for all the service they did and how much they helped all the other devotees in so many ways. As mother, therefore we're taught to address women as Mataji or mother, not to exploit them.
So I had like a kind of two-part question where you mentioned that we should serve whether prasadam's opulent or not good. We shouldn't go out and buy like our own things. So when we're traveling in the van, we have the option to get like what we want, what we need to go. And then when we go to temples, a lot of times things are really like oily, salty, sweet. And I mean, I just want some kind of like clarification on
You
that.
want to go on track Sankirtan. That's one of the ways he gets people to stay on the Sankirtan.
But the second part of the question is, when reading the books, it seems like we should really regulate all of our habits, become more simplistic, come into a more sattvic state. But when I go to temples, it's always like a feast and everything's covered in oil and salt and...
Should be ghee. This ghee is higher standard. Well, yeah. But we shouldn't see prasadam as being, we shouldn't see it with condemnation or, based on material observation. It's transcendental. So, I may not be able to eat all prasadam, but that doesn't mean it's not prasadam, and that doesn't mean I should criticize it. So, I guess, what is your question? That it's not prasadam for brahmacharis?
Basically.
Well, prasadam for brahmacharis, whether you're in the van, traveling Sankirtan or not, the idea is not to eat overly opulent foodstuffs, and that can cause agitation. Because we're already agitated, and we don't want to increase that agitation, so we should be careful about our diet so that we don't unnecessarily agitate more. That's the idea. At the same time, we have to do service, so we need strength and energy to do the service. So it's a balance, and one will learn that in due course of time. But the main thing is that one should learn from this early training is only to take prasadam, not to take things that are not offerable, or that are not offered. And ideally, in the temple, the ideal situation is that one should accept what the deity has eaten. And if you're on traveling Sankirtan, then it's a different standard, and you follow that standard by those who are expert at doing it. Because you don't have the deity in the temple. Same situation, you don't have cooking facilities. So according to time and circumstance, right now some of our traveling Sankirtan men are not allowed to do traveling Sankirtan, so otherwise they'd be out distributing books. This is an extraordinary situation we're in right now. So you just have to tolerate. This is something you just have to tolerate normally. As soon as we can get out again, the traveling parties will roll, and you'll be back in that situation. But for now, you have to adjust as best you can to taking what the deities are taking. And that's also training. That's good. All right, we'll make this the last question.
Okay. So, there's a tendency in my mind, we talked about not thinking about women. I'll be doing my regular devotional activities, and this thing will come into my mind like, it's almost like I don't know who I'm doing it for anymore. Am I doing it for Mataji? Or am I doing it for Krishna? Or am I doing it for Guru? But it's the same activity. So I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we have to purify our thoughts so that we're always doing it for Krishna and Guru. And we're not doing it for public and others to impress. But if you feel that now, as a brahmachari, then imagine when you get married. If you get married, it's all the time like that. So then that's not a solution. The solution is not necessarily, it may be a solution if someone is unable to continue as brahmachari, and it's better. If he's too much disturbed and he's not able to perform service enthusiastically, then it's better that he changes ashram. But if he can carry on and he's working at progressing and getting thoughts focused on Krishna rather than other objects of the senses, and that he's making progress. And that's fine. For example, Prabhupada at the second sannyasa initiation in the movement, he told the 4 young men who were getting married, he said, now taking sannyas does not mean that you'll never have material desires for sex life. He said, it doesn't mean that you won't ever have the desire, but now you cannot act on it. So, because you're a brahmachari, doesn't mean the thought may not come into your mind about enjoying sense gratification, but you cannot act on it. Of course you can as a brahmachari, you can still become grihastha, but that's the only way to act on it in a legitimate Krishna conscious way, not by trying to encourage that relationship. So therefore brahmacharis have their boundaries and sannyasis have their boundaries. And if women need to be in somebody's boundary, then the grihastha ashram is available for that. For those who have to have that female association in order for them to be able to work to their fullest degree. Okay, thank you very much for your association. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Guru Ki jai.